FBI busts militia plot to abduct Michigan Gov Gretchen Whitmer. Mrs. Whitmer's coronavirus executive orders led to controversy in Michigan. Officials say the alleged plot involved kidnapping Mrs. Whitmer from her holiday home. Michigan protesters were some of the most vocally opposed in the U.S. to lockdown measures. Anti-lockdown protesters have referred to Mrs. Whitmer as Hitler. The FBI says it has thwarted a plot to abduct and overthrow Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Mrs. Whitmer has become a target of coronavirus skeptics after enacting strict mitigation measures that were overturned by a judge last week. Officials say the kidnapping plot involved 6 men who planned to hold a treason trial for her. Hatred, bigotry and violence have no place in Michigan, Mrs. Whitmer said, describing the accused as depraved. In a press conference on Thursday, the governor tied the plot against her to the rhetoric of President Donald Trump, who she said has spent the last several months stoking distrust, fomenting anger and giving comfort to those who spread fear and hatred and division. The governor pointed to Mr. Trump's failure to condemn white supremacists at the first presidential debate, calling his remarks a rallying cry for hate groups. He later disavowed such organizations in an interview with Fox News. According to a sworn FBI affidavit, an undercover law enforcement source attended a June meeting in Dublin, Ohio, where a group of Michigan-based militia members discussed overthrowing state governments that they believed were violating the U.S. Constitution. Several members talked about murdering tyrants or taking a sitting governor, the charging document states. In one video, a suspect announced the state's role in deciding when to reopen gyms during the coronavirus lockdown. Those arrested include Adam Fox, Barry Croft, Caleb Franks, Daniel Harris, Brandon Kasert and Ty Garban, whose home was raided by authorities on Wednesday. The group wished to gather about 200 men to storm the Capitol building and take hostages, including the governor. They hoped to enact their plan before the November presidential election. If that failed, they planned to attack the governor at her home, officials say. The accused coordinated surveillance of the governor's vacation home, said the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Michigan, adding that they also planned Molotov cocktail attacks on police officers, purchased a taser, and pooled their funds to purchase explosives and tactical equipment. The men, 5 of whom are from Michigan and 1 from Delaware, allegedly planned to hold a treason trial against Mrs. Whitmer. The accused held weapons training in several states, and at times attempted to create bombs, the FBI says, adding that their training was captured on video. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel said that separate to the kidnapping charges, 7 members of the Wolverine Watchmen militia will be charged by the state with gang affiliation and providing material support to terrorists. Mrs. Nessel said the arrested militia members hope to start a civil war. Michigan law enforcement officers are united in our commitment to rooting out terrorism in any form, and we will take swift action against anyone seeking to cause violence or harm in our state, Colonel Joe Gasper, director of the Michigan State Police, said in a statement announcing charges against the Wolverine Watchmen. Numerous violent incidents have been linked to citizen militia groups across the U.S. in recent years. Adherents, who are often white men, sometimes brandish weapons during protests. The Department of Homeland Security warned this week in an annual report that violent white supremacy was the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland. Mrs. Whitmer's lockdown orders drew thousands of protesters to the state capitol, where many compared her to German dictator Adolf Hitler. In April, President Donald Trump cast support for the protesters, tweeting, "Liberate Michigan." In May, armed protesters opposed to lockdown stormed the state capitol. None of us has faced a challenge like COVID-19, Mrs. Whitmer said on Thursday. We are not one another's enemy. This virus is our enemy, and this enemy is relentless. News taken from BBC. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.